and please take over.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the special session this evening. To quote Walt Whitman, the English language is the creation and growth of every dialect, race, and range of time, and is both the free and compacted composition of all. Delhi Public School Bangalore East celebrates English Week, where linguistic skills enhancing session with fun-filled activities have been organized from 26 September to 29 September 2022. An array of events has been conducted with the motive to enhance the vocabulary, language skills, and make learning more enjoyable. Today, in the spirit of English Week, we have a special session on nurturing creativity by Mr. Gurucharan Singh Gandhi. I would like to request Shonali ma'am, the head of English Department, DPS, to welcome our honored guest.
Thank you, Rabia ma'am. A very good evening to everyone. It's with great pride and pleasure that I welcome the dynamic and versatile Mr. Gurucharan Singh Gandhi. Having spent over 2 decades in the corporate world, Mr. Gurucharan Singh Gandhi sought to pursue his passion in writing. His debut book, Kabir Incorporates, published in 2016 in English and thereafter translated in Hindi and Marathi, was a national bestseller and won the Best Debut Manuscript in Non-Fiction at Litofest. His second book, Echoes of Gasping Souls, was published in February of 2021. Born and raised in a hamlet in Jharkhand, his writings have the sensibility of small-town India coupled with its inescapable complexes. Mr. Gandhi is currently the head human resources, Madura Fashion and Lifestyle with the Aditya Birla Group. In a career spanning 21 years, he has worked with companies like Aditya Birla Capital, Max Life Insurance, Bharti AXA Life, and Nicholas Pirabal Pharmaceuticals. Mr. Gandhi has been an avid writer who regularly pens down his thoughts through his blog titled Monday Musings and has been a columnist in the magazine People Matters. He has been a guest faculty at Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies. Mr. Guru has been delivering inspirational talks at various forums to encourage students and adults alike. He has been a guest speaker at Symbiosis Institute of Business Studies and MS Institute in University of Baroda. He has a penchant for running marathons, which he feels helps him to clear his thoughts and keep him motivated. He's a bachelor in pharmacy and an MBA in marketing. Another identity of Mr. Guru would be very intriguing for all of us to know, and that is, on the personal front, Mr. Guru is our very dear colleague, Ms. Anu Rikraju's better half. So let me present before you Mr. Gurucharan Singh Gandhi, extending you a very hearty welcome, Mr. Gandhi. The stage is all yours. Please take over.
Thank you, Sonali, for that very elaborate and kind introduction. I'm not sure if all of that is as true as it sounded, but it felt very nice, I must confess. Thank you very much to have me over. And thanks to all the students on the call today who would spare their 45 odd minutes or an hour at best to listen to this. I will treat this as more a conversation. So my invitation to everybody on the call, students particularly, is it's not a Gyan session, it's not an advice session, it's not from me to you. Listen to it as if you're listening to a podcast. Listen to it as if you're listening to a YouTube channel, so to speak. Have fun. You don't have to agree to everything that I say. Listen, absorb, question, debate, and only allow that which resonates well with you to enter, and rest all you can throw it. That's what human minds are for. There is a chat box, I'm sure, on everybody's everybody's screen. At any point of time, you have any specific question that you would want me to cover, do punch in your questions. I would be more than happy to make this conversational, two-way, rather than me speaking and you listening, which I'm sure people of your age, in any case, don't like, just as I did not like it when I was your age. So enjoy this more than anything else. I'll just take a second to put up the slide so that then we can get the motion of the conversation forward. And Sonali, you need to help confirm to me if it is visible.
Yes, sure.
Once you say visible, I'll move on.
Yeah, sure. Yes, it is visible.
Super. So, as I said, I promised to tell you guys a story, my story, who was a very, very confused schoolboy. I'm still partially confused most of the times, but with an angle of strength. My confusion is not a source of weakness. My confusion is a source of strength, because confusion makes me curious. Confusion makes me want to learn what I don't know. Confusion helps me settle my mind by researching better. And therefore, as I said, my story is about the transition from an extremely confused schoolboy to a slightly less confused writer. And it is not as if I became a writer on day one. It was a gradual culmination of many small steps taken, uh, which resulted in the time when I could look back at my own life and say, hey, I think I can write. And that's the story I'm going to share with all of you. I'm moving the slide forward. Sonali, you need to confirm to me whether the slide is moving forward for you as well. And I'm going to check that every time I change over the slide.
Sure.
So I've changed the slide. Let me know if it has moved on your
Yes, very
screens
clear. We are
as well.
on the next slide.
Lovely, lovely, which means technology works. My own experience tells me technology has a funny way of not working just when you want it to work. So I'm clarifying time and again.
Yeah.
So my friends in the student community, it's difficult to imagine now with my gray beard and reasonably old age, but I promise you, once upon a time I went to school, uh, which only means that all that you go through today, in some form or shape, I would have gone through. Um, there were days when I would not want to go to school, just as you. There were days when I thought it was quite boring, just as you. There were days when I thought it was a great day to go to school, just as you. There were days when I was extremely inspired, and there were other days when I thought maybe it was not that inspirational. So the roller coaster called school was exactly similar in my time as much as it would have been in your case. I grew up in the erstwhile state of Bihar, but that part of Bihar today falls in Jharkhand. Um, all of you are born in the last 15 years, so you would not know, but let me share this news with you that once upon a time there was no state of Jharkhand. There used to be lesser number of Indian states, and that part of the country where I grew up was undivided Bihar. It's the southern tip of the erstwhile state. The nearest large town is Jamshedpur. If you have heard it, Tata Nagar, the iconic steel plant by the House of Tatas. That's the place. And the hamlet, I can't even call it a city. I can't even call it village. The hamlet in which I grew up still exists exactly in the form and shape that it used to exist then. Let me give you some descriptors so that you understand what kind of a place it was when I was growing up in the early 80s. Um, there are a total of about 50 households. 50 household means roughly as the society in which I live in today, for example, has 1,000 households. And most of the societies that you would live have more than 500 households. And the total number of households in my locality were not more than 50. So you can imagine how small a place it was. Uh, the medium of conversation was largely Hindi, that also a Hindi which is not puritanical, which is not literary but colloquial. The dialects was a combination of what can be called as Bhojpuri. Uh, Other part of the community living there were people who were locals of the Chota Nagpur plateau. So another interesting community. So linguistically, it was a very complex place. And as you can see it, my own mother tongue is Punjabi. So the growing up years were fascinating because linguistically I was exposed to Hindi, Bhojpuri, partly tribal, large part Punjabi spoken at home, but not English. And the reason why I point that out is because this conversation is about my own journey with the language called English. Um, Another interesting facet about growing up there was the fact that there was no electricity. Now, this is very difficult to conjure. This is very difficult to imagine today because that's something that is almost universal in the country. And it is almost unimaginable to believe that you can live in a place where there is no electricity. But I was blessed to grow up in such a place, at least for the first 13, 14 years of my life. I still remember the village got electrified when I was in standard 8th. So at least right up till standard 8th, I would not know the joys of living in a bulb or a tube light or a television or a fan. Those were things that I saw only in other people's home, particularly when I would go to the other side of the village, which is the bridge that I wanted to highlight. And that's why I've taken a picture of the bridge. This is a real bridge. Interestingly, this got made when I was in standard 4th, which means at least my first 6 years, there were other interesting ways in which this river was crossed over. Um, and electricity and all other facilities of modern life, I experienced only when I would go to school, which was on the other side of the village. Uh, the reason why I'm pointing that out for all of you is the only thing that I knew was not knowing. There was a lot that I got exposed to not while living in my own home or living in the community that I lived, but only when I would go to the other side of the so-called village in other people's homes. All my inspiration, all my reference points uh, got enriched only when that journey was undertaken. Now, when I look back upon this life, the feelings that I often get filled with is gratitude, happiness, and almost thankfulness that I lived such a life because it in many ways laid down the foundation of the writer in me 20 years later. And I'm going to tell that correlation in just a while from now. So what were three big lessons? By the way, this is the real lantern that is from my home. This picture is about 15 years old. Miraculously, it survived on my, I think 12, 13 years. Miraculously, it survived on my phone. Sonali confirmed to me that the slide has changed for you.
Yes, we are very nostalgic seeing this slide.
Super. So this lantern is the real lantern. It is not taken from Google. This lantern is from my home. Um, this is about a decade-old photograph. So 3 lessons that I picked up from growing up in a place like that, in circumstances like that. The first lesson was you cannot control or you cannot choose where you begin the race. Each one of us is beginning his or her race differently, and we must therefore not fall in the trap of unnecessary comparisons, unnecessary, uh, yeah, comparison is the best word. However, where you will end this race, where you will end this journey will definitely be in your hand. That was my first big lesson. Second is be blessed with what you have because that is what makes you unique. Now, the reason why I told you that story is those memories of living in a very, very sheltered environment close to nature with sights, sounds, darkness, light. Um, those created an imagination which was real, which was vivid, which was not in many ways corrupted, in many ways not diluted, which as a writer later on uh, became an original source of inspiration. All of us are unique because of the circumstances that we grow up in. Even sometimes when you believe they are not rich, even when you believe they are not necessarily filled with facilities, they still make you unique. And hence, to all my student friends, my big message is, don't grudge your circumstances, don't grudge your journey, because that's what's making you special, that's what's making you unique. And just because facilities are not there doesn't mean imagination won't be there. Actually, my own feeling about the subject of imagination and creativity is, the less you have, the more imagination you can be. There was this research done a few years back which says, in order to be creative, you need to be bored. Only bored people can be creative. People who are constantly occupied with activities, one activity after the other, they cannot be creative, because creativity requires stillness, it requires silence, it requires pause. You have to let everything go and absorb your surroundings and close your eyes and start writing or start drawing or start painting. So remember this, it's a real research. For those of you who believe only research provides answers, uh, you cannot be creative if you aren't ready to be bored. So you have to be bored. So just because there are no facilities does not mean lack of imagination. So I'm moving to the next slide. So my journey has been a journey of plan Bs. Nature has never been uh, kind to me to allow my plan A's to work. In fact, none of my plan A's have ever worked. Sometimes I believe I'm very blessed that none of my plan A works, because I think nature is ready to give me an opportunity which I am not able to visualize as well. So let me give you some examples. Right after my school, I wanted to crack medical entrance exam and become a doctor. I came this close to become a doctor, could not get the right scores, and therefore the course available to me was bachelor in pharmacy. Pharmacy was never my plan A. My plan A was medicine, but because that did not happen, I did pharmacy. As I was doing pharmacy, my plan A was to do research, crack some foreign university, go abroad and study. And I was scoring very, very well. In fact, I topped my university all 4 years, and I thought it was in my bag. But right 2 years before that, I suddenly realized, oh my God, there is something called MBA. Let me not go abroad. Let me try MBA, and therefore MBA, which was never my plan A, became my plan B, and that's what I did. Then I was doing MBA. I did MBA and specialized in marketing. As you heard from my introduction, I am head of human resources, which is not my specialization during my MBA. So my plan A was to do marketing. I did that for a few years and then moved on gradually to do human resources. And finally, my plan A was to do only the job. My plan A was only to work and make money there. Um, but I realized that there was a writer in me accidentally. I'm going to talk about that in the subsequent slides. And that I enjoyed running. I started running at the age of 29. I'm going to say that once again. I started at the ripe age of 29, and so far I have ran about 36 half marathons and one full marathon. One half marathon is 21 kilometers. I run about a 21 in about 2 hours 20 minutes, and one full marathon which is about 42 kilometers. That's the picture on your right hand side below is a beautiful marathon I ran in the temple town of Hampi in Bangalore, and the picture on the top is a book signing that is happening of my first book. This was never my plan A. Okay, becoming, if as a student, if in school somebody would have said, one day you're going to write a book, that too in English, I would have laughed. Even in college, if somebody would have said, you will one day run a marathon, I would have laughed my gut out. Even 10 years back, if somebody would have said, one day you are going to be a published author of 2 books, I would have said, well, it happens to other people. It doesn't happen to people like me. So I am a person of plan B. Mostly of my plan A's don't work. And now I have started to enjoy the fact that it's okay sometimes when plan A doesn't work. And therefore, my 3 big lessons in that story is it's okay if some things don't happen. I think as a child, I was far more fussy about what I want. That's exactly what I wanted. As a kid, I would feel very bad if I didn't get what I wanted. Sometimes I even threw tantrums with my parents if I would not get what I wanted. But I realized over a period of time that it's okay if some things don't happen. It's okay if you don't get what you desperately want at that moment. Um, the trick is to move on to newer pastures, newer objectives, newer goals with even greater energy and even greater determination than what you had in the past. I think that's the trick I have discovered through the ups and downs of life. So all those on this call who are listening, who sometimes don't get what you want, uh, rejoice, because whatever happens for good. I can assure you that nature has better understanding about what is good for you. Uh, those are my big lessons from my own journey. I'm going to move to the next slide, and Sonali, confirm to me if this slide is visible
Yeah,
to
we are
everyone.
on the next slide.
Sonali,
Yes,
visible?
yes, we are on the next slide. Yeah, right.
Oh, lovely. So this is specifically the journey of the writer and the language. So let me begin by first sharing with you that by age 20, I was, I, I cannot say I knew how to speak English quite well. While the medium of instruction in the school in Jharkhand was English, but trust me, we hardly spoke that language as a medium of conversation. I'm going to say that once again. While the medium of instruction was English, but it was never a medium of conversation. My parents, for instance, did not speak English. Uh, my neighbors never spoke English. My um, surroundings, there was absolutely zero usage of English as a medium of conversation. Uh, and what happens when a language is not your natural medium of conversation, social medium of conversation, you're just about okay. You can just manage to survive, but you can't call that language your own. I had never read an English book right up till age 20, even one. Uh, I had never read an English newspaper. Actually, I had not read a newspaper at all till age 20. So I'm just thinking what else I had not done by age 20. So you can safely call me as an extremely boring person insofar as literature is concerned. I read a lot of Hindi though. I read lots and lots of Hindi literature. So maybe the only saving grace was literature was not unknown to me. English definitely was unknown to me. It was only towards the graduation, right after my 12th, I guess, is when I was first exposed to the joy of English language. I remember I read a newspaper and I said, okay, not bad. I read books which Enid Blyton and Nancy Drew and not Thomas Hardy, Hardy Boys. These are books which children read or used to read, which I read as a full-blown adult. Typically, these books were read by people who were in school. But I was okay because I thought to myself, maybe I'm a late bloomer. It's fine. Let this rose bloom, even if it means it blooms a little late. Um, but that was the process of discovery, and almost till about age 25, there was a constant struggle to master the language. For a language to come easy, for a language to come effortlessly, for words to suddenly not be a struggle, uh, it was a long drawn struggle. And I still remember some of the early struggles. About last month or so, I showed my daughter word cards that I used 30 years back. These were about 200 cards. Each card had 5 or 6 English words written in it, and with a with a with a meaning elucidated. Um, those were my best friends. I think every day, whenever I would get time, I would go through it. Pronunciation was a challenge. I would speak sometimes English as if I was speaking Hindi. And very gradually, uh, the comfort to hold a book in my hand started to emerge. Otherwise, a 200-page book can be very, very intimidating. Thick books can be very intimidating. You look for large fonts and easy language. And I realized it was not before 30, those baby steps started to get converted into a comfort with the language, comfort with usage of words. It's one thing to know its technical meaning. It's another thing to recognize how the word is being used. That you learn only when you read 50, 60, 70 books. And somewhere beginning age 20 to age 30, I think I must have read in those 10 years some 200-300 books. I did not ask myself whether it's a good book, it's a bad book, is it a famous book. I think I've known many people who ask me, suggest books to be read. And I said, I often say it's a stupid question to ask, actually. All books are uh, worthy to be read, because for you to be able to guess which is a average book or which is a bad book, you need to be exposed to what's a good book. And hence, not before you have read 100 odd books in your life should you even bother to question whether a book is a good book or a bad book. And my even till age 30, while my comfort of the reading word was beginning to shape, writing was still far, far away. By 30, it roughly means that I got married at 31. So right till about that point, I had not written even one paragraph. Uh, I ran my first marathon at 31. So you can imagine at 30, I had not written a book. I had not written a word of of an article. I had not run. Once again, highlighting the fact that some flowers bloom a little late, such as me. It was only through an accident that I wrote my first small article of about 100, words. I will not go into the story of what made me write that first 100-word or 200-word article, but it was a pain. It was a struggle. It's one thing to know words, it's another thing to conjure a string of words into a meaningful sentence, into a meaningful paragraph that other people would find interesting to read. Uh, and that struggle, which began somewhere about the age 30, went up till about 35, 37. So 5, 7 years that struggle remained. However, the only good thing that I kept on doing was not stopped writing. I would write typically 100-word, 200-word article every Monday. I'm a act of, I'm a big believer of discipline. You will see it in my subsequent slide. Um, what I lack in intelligence, I make up through discipline. I'm going to say that once again. What I lack in intelligence, I usually make it up through discipline. So discipline is my way of overcoming what I call my rather modest intelligence. What I promised myself is every Monday I will write a 200-word article. I stuck to my guns. I stuck to that discipline of doing it. And before long, I realized that I had 50 articles written. Before long, I had realized I had 100 articles. Before long, I had realized I had 200 articles. Before long, I had realized I had 250 articles. And by the time I was 36, 37, 38, I realized that my body of articles and blogs was about 300. And when you write 300 articles over a 6-7 year period, trust me, one thing that happens is it builds your confidence. Uh, it confirms to you that it is no longer a mere hobby. It is now taking a shape of something more serious, something more worthwhile. Uh, and I had the audacity to even think of writing a book roughly at about age 38. Uh, and it took another 3 years for that hard work to take the shape of my first book, which is up on your screen, called Kabir Incorporates, which happened at the ripe old age of 41. So look at the timelines once again, young friends. What started off at age 20 took me 21 years for it to take some semblance of a shape, which I could go out in the world and claim that I think it's a job well done. It took 21 long years for me. Uh, and I'm very proud of the fact that I ran this race and I kept on pursuing this hobby for that long uh, before the first signs of a great product emerged. And 2 years, 4 years later, which is on the right hand side of the book, of the screen, Echoes of Gasping Souls was the second book that came at age 45. I'm happy to share that in another 3 months, the third book is going to come. So it has taken me 2 more years to write the third. So see how the time taken for it to churn out books keeps on compressing itself. It takes 20 to produce the first. It takes 2 to produce the second, and it has taken less than 2 actually to produce the third. That's what happens when you pursue a hobby consistently for long years rather than get bored with it uh, in shorter duration of time. I'm going to move to the next slide, which is now partly advice, partly um, my formula. If any one of you were to ever come and say, "Okay, Guru, you have done it. Tell us, what does it take to fall in love with the language of English? What does it take to become a writer?" Uh, Here are my three big bucket advices. I think the first part is vocabulary. English is it's a very open-hearted language. It's also a very nimble language. It's open-hearted because it acquires words from potentially all languages in the world. Words like jungle is a word from Hindi. Words like juggernaut is a word from Oriya. Foppa is a word from Latin. It borrows words from practically all languages in the world: Japanese, Spanish, Hindi, and so on and so forth. So one is the task of constantly learning vocabulary. And you can't be a writer if you don't have a bare minimum quiver filled with words. A quiver usually is the thing that is filled with arrows. And my advice to young friends would be, begin with a discipline called 2 words a day, 1 word a day, 5 words a day, new words that you will explore. And that's how your kind of richness of vocabulary is maintained, because English also is a very layered language. Um, Hate has 7 synonyms in English. There is hate, there is distaste, there is dislike, there is abominate, there is loathe. I mean, those are the ones that come to my mind. These are just synonyms of the word hate. So English is a language which is very layered, and yet, while we say they are synonyms, they are not really synonyms, because where you can use the word loathe, you can only use the word loathe. You can't use the word distaste. And you learn all of this only when you have a reasonable body of a vocabulary. The second way in which you build that vocabulary is by reading. Now, many young friends of mine who have an aspiration to become a writer often say, can I become a writer without being a reader? Now, here is the bad news, folks. You can't be a writer if you are not a good reader. There is this old metaphor which says, reading is like filling a vessel. Whatever spills out is writing. So you have to read at least 100 times more for you to write one paragraph. So please do read multiple authors, multiple genres, even when you don't like them. Let me confess that 2022, a year, has been a year when I have finally started to read Harry Potter. Now, I know Harry Potter is a 10-year-old genre, but because my daughters read them, therefore I just wanted to figure out, what does this genre look like? The writer in me is curious. And I don't like it, by the way. I don't like this kind of story. But I'm happy to share that I somehow have struggled through 3 and I'm on my 4th. If nothing else, it's enriching me as a writer because at least now I know what this genre looks like. Never let go of a genre because you don't like it. That's bad news for a writer. At least read one, even that genre. So vocabulary is the first area you attack. The second area you attack is the craft of writing. Craft of writing is the technique of writing. It's the technique of crafting sentences. It is the technique of usage of words. And there are only 2 ways in which you learn the craft. One, when you read other craftsmen, other writers, other authors who have walked this journey before you, that's when you figure out, oh, this is how it is done. And hence this reading multiple authors and genres, I'm repeating it once again. On one hand, reading helps you build vocabulary. On the other hand, it also helps you understand how crafty different authors are. Same subject, 4 different authors will treat it differently. For you to discover your style, you need to know what are the other styles available. And because a craft needs practice, therefore, the only way you will become better at your craft is to write. There is no escape from writing regularly if you want to become a writer of repute, a writer of certain basic capability. Craft is something that requires practice. An artisan is a craftsman. A writer is a craftsman. A painter is a craftsman. Any craftsman requires hours and hours of practice. Hence, my friends, young friends, ask yourself, what is the bare minimum discipline you are willing to contribute? If you say it's 200 words a week, it's okay. It's 200 words a week. But then stick to that regime or stick to that discipline. Third part of the English language is experience. You may have great words in your quiver. You may have great craft that you have, but what will you write about? A writer is finally expressing an experience, an emotion. If you do not have real experiences, you cannot become a real writer. Hence, please have real world references and not only digital one. Now, I know that I have a young daughter who likes to be on the laptop all the time, or at least most of the time. And yet, as a writer, my advice to all of you will be, do spend time in the real world also. If you have to smell, for example, a rose, you can't smell it on the screen. If you have to write about, for instance, rains, you have to get wet. If, for instance, you have to write about a picturesque hill station, you have to see the hills. A good writer has real world references. Digital world references will not suffice. Hence, visit places, meet new people, make friendship, chat, gossip, have a cup of coffee, go out, meet friends, meet strangers. That will build a body of experience that you will use your vocabulary and your craft to create something beautiful. On writing specifically, while I've covered some of this in the past 20-30 minutes, let me recap this for you. If you want to be a good writer, read, 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 then write, then read, 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 and then write, and then read, 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 and then write. If you cannot write, if you cannot read. While I've said 1,000 words a week here, I said 500 weeks, 500 words a week in the previous slide. It's fine if you choose to do 200. Even that is fine. But then let it be predictable. Let it be a discipline. Let it be something you say, hey, if I don't write 200 words this week, I'm not going to have that pizza that I usually enjoy over the weekend. Or I'm not going to have that Coke that I so enjoy. In many ways, that's your reward for sticking to your discipline. No topic is out of syllabus. Be ready to be bored. Sometimes you have to stare the screen. Sometimes you have to stare the piece of paper and the pen in the hand. It's fine. Words will come. Ideas will come. Don't worry. Don't let go. Don't lose hope. Share what you write so that the hesitation is over. Many people write a few words, but they don't share because they believe it's not good enough. My daughter is an aspiring author. She writes brilliantly. I think her imagination, in my opinion as a writer, is quite good. However, she hesitates to share. And I know that's the story of many of you. Don't hesitate. Share. Take feedback. Write some more. Ask for feedback. Make it better. So on and so forth. It's only when this cycle is repeated multiple times that the writer in you will start to take shape. Last but not the least, love the language. English is a language that must be fallen in love with. Please love it from the bottom of your heart. You cannot be a writer if you don't love the joys of expression, if you don't love the joys of crafting a nice sentence. I craft a sentence and I often take it to my friends, my colleagues, my family, and I say, hey, this is a paragraph that I have written. Tell me, how has that come out? Because for me, the act of that creation is absolutely stupendous. So on that note, I'm going to stop sharing this. Thank you very much. Sonali, I'm at the end of my presentation. Let me know if there are questions on the chat box. Happy to take them. Is the slide removed from your screens? Or
Yes, yes. There are no slides on the screen. Rabia ma'am, please take
lovely.
over.
Thank you so much for sharing such wonderful thoughts with us. And it was indeed a very inspiring session. And I'm sure our students have benefited much and gained invaluable tips and tricks of creative writing. And I hope they'll follow your advice and aspire to be budding writers. Now I'll hand it over to Shweta ma'am for the question answers.
Thank you, Rabia ma'am. Now we shall begin with the question answer session. I can see hands raised. I shall begin with Abhisyant Barua. If you can unmute yourself, Abhisyant.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this wonderful session. It was great to hear about your journey and your tips. So my question is, according to you, what are the biggest barriers to creativity in a student's life like ours?
In some ways, I have covered that. I think there are two barriers. First barrier is we don't read enough. And I'm talking about now linguistic creativity, okay? The creativity is of many type. I'm only referring to creativity of the words. I think the first big barrier is you don't read enough. You haven't been exposed to sufficient number of writers, sufficient number of books. The second big barrier is you do not have real world reference points, which you can later on tie together and say, let me write a paragraph about it. For example, if you want to write about sadness, you have to feel sad, right? Supposing you want to write about joy, you have to feel happy, right? Supposing you want to write about sunrise, you can't not see a sunrise and write about sunrise. You have to see a rising sun and its beauty and its color and how uplifting that can be. I think that's the second barrier. And maybe the last one is lethargy of, I don't know what's the right word, postponing the act of writing. You can't say yourself that one day I will become. Those would be my top three. Abhisyant.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Abhisyant. We will move on to the next student. This is Anusha Verma. Anusha?
Thank you, sir, for that truly. Am I audible?
Yes, Anush.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, sir, for that truly wonderful speech. And it has definitely inspired me and definitely motivated me. So, sir, I had a small question for you. So, an idea that you put forward that really resonated with me. To paraphrase it, even if the same people are given the same tasks, they will have different outcomes because essentially where you come from, it makes a difference. So, sir, how, like coming from a small town, how did it make a difference in your perspective on the cutthroat corporate world?
Oh, that's a very deep question, Anusha. I had not imagined I will be posed it. Okay. So I think it's a mixed bag. At one level, um, growing up in the area that I grew up, I came out in the cities, and the initial years were edgy. They were a little hard on me because it hits your confidence when everybody around you is speaking such wonderful English. They are so exposed. They seem to know everything. They know the right singers. They know the right icons. They're doing just what is in thing. You know what I mean? And you suddenly are wondering, oh my God, how come I don't know all of this? So as a young boy, I think it was quite hard on me. I will not deny that. But at another level, it only egged me and pushed me harder to say what others will do in 1 year, I will do in 6 months, because I have a catch up to do. I know I have started to read, let's say 10 years later than everybody, which only means that my required run rate is 2 times theirs. What if they finish one book in a month, I'll finish 5. And that is the attitude with which I have lived so far. It was difficult when I was younger. It is easier now because now I know the trick. But as a young boy, I think it was tricky. However, the only thing that thankfully, Anusha, I never suffered from is inaction. I have seen many times people, when they face a certain challenging circumstance, the challenge becomes so huge in their minds that they stop doing everything. Thank God I never suffered from that. For me, constantly in action, it was more important than anything else. I think that helped me, through those years. But like all human beings, there were good days, there were bad days. You brush off the bad days and you say, okay, tomorrow is a new day.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, can we hear it from Siri? Siri, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, Siri.
Am I?
Yes,
Hello,
Siri.
sir. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I feel like I've learned a lot and I can't wait to start applying this knowledge in my daily life. Sir, you are an author and you are involved in the fashion business, one of your published books being Echoes of Gasping Souls. Sir, do you think inspirations are an essential component when it comes to expanding our creative thinking?
Wow. Wow. Absolutely stupendous question. I think absolutely yes. Uh, Human beings are special creatures, Siri, um, because of two or three things. Uh, and one amongst them is that only human beings on earth can be inspired. You can't inspire a dog, okay? You can't inspire a snake. You can't inspire any creature on this earth. You can only inspire a human being. And hence, it's an absolute yes from my side that inspiration plays a very, very vital role uh, in pushing us to do bigger things in life. So, Siri, what does inspiration really mean? Inspiration basically means I will meet someone, I will read about something, I will watch something, and I will look at myself and I say, hey, I also want to do this. I will look at my past and say, can I do better than this? That inspiration can be scoring better marks, it can be reading more books, it can be doing better fitness, it can be anything which pushes you to create a better future than your past is inspiration. And therefore, all sources are welcome. As long as you allow yourself to be inspired. I'm going to repeat that Siri last sentence once again. As long as you allow yourselves to be inspired. If you are blocking inspiration, then there is no difference between human beings and fellow animals. You have to we all know the phrase letting go. Very few of us understand the phrase letting come. So you have to let come the inspiration so that the inspiration can work on you. So don't block inspiration. Let it come from all possible directions.
Thank you so much, sir.
Next hand is Sanchita.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, Sanjita.
Yes.
So, sir, thank you so much for that amazing talk on nurturing creativity. It was really inspiring. And being an aspiring writer myself, I just want to know, I want to ask a question. So, imagination lays the stepping stones for creativity to flourish. Sir, can you suggest ways we can gain the exposure to breed the ground for imagination? Or in the sense, what kind of opportunities would be ideal to enhance our creativity?
Uh, I think I covered that partially in my talk. Uh, the only way you allow imagination to flourish is by enriching your experience pool. You have to meet more people, see more places, encounter more circumstances. Um, you can't you can't close all doors around you and say my experience will become more. Imagination gets triggered when you are able to join two or three random dots. That happens only when you are exposed to multiple circumstances, multiple stimuli, multiple people, multiple places, multiple smells, multiple songs. The trick is in variety. There has to be variety. In fact, every week ask yourself, Sanjita, what is it that I'm doing for the first time?
Yes, sir. Will do that. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Next, Ritul.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I really like what you spoke about, sir. So actually, my question was more related to your experiences with the corporate world. So you've been a leader of multiple industries, and you've managed a lot of people as well in the past. So taking one side in a conflicting debate could lead it to the wounded pride of a team member. So how can you avoid this in such a large workspace is what I had to ask.
My God, I feel as if I'm answering to my boss. Uh, Ritul, my boss. Difficult. First of all, let's begin by acknowledging it's difficult. It's difficult to not wound pride, as you rightly pointed out. And yet, point of view has to be expressed. And somebody will find that I have taken a position different from theirs. I think then delicateness of style comes into picture. Use of the right words comes into picture. Focusing on the issue rather than the person comes into picture. I can say, Ritul, you are a bad person. Or I can say, Ritul, this particular action was not right. In which case, there is a greater chance that the pride is not wounded. What other tricks are there to do this? Sometimes when we believe that the moment is too heated, not to do the discussion then and just postpone it by a day. That's another trick. Human beings' ability to think straight when they are angry is very poor. And I can assure you, Ritul, it is not only true in the corporate world, it is even true in the student world. It is even true in homes that when anger has flared up, human capability to stay composed, rational, think straight, think logically is limited. And therefore, my theory is postpone the discussion. We will do it when tempers are normal, heat and dust is settled, in which case all human beings are smart enough to think right. Right? Fundamentally, human beings are intelligent people. They all know the right answers. I don't know, Ritul, if that helps you, but
yeah,
those
no,
are my
I got it.
ways.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kunal Marknani from 12th. Kunal?
Yeah. Shweta ma'am, after this, we will take one last question. Okay. After Kunal, one last question. Okay.
Sure, ma'am. Sure,
We'll
ma'am.
run out of time otherwise. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Kunal?
Yeah. Hello, good evening, sir. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, Kunal.
So, sir, it was a truly inspiring speech you gave, and I'm really inspired to read more books from now on. And my question is regarding your book, Kabir in Corporates. So, Kabir in Corporates guides people how to balance their work life and how to manage situations effectively and efficiently, with reference to to the Bhakti saint Kabir's couplets, Kabir ke dohe. So my question to you is, how did Kabir's couplets help you in your professional life?
Wow. Completely. I think whoever I am, whatever I am, if I were to write down top 5 influences of my life, I will rate Kabir and his literature as one amongst the top 5 most profound influence that I had. And I was very blessed in that sense, Kunal, to have been exposed to that literature very early in life. Uh, Look, we are very unique as people in India. Okay, Kunal? We are very unique because the sheer diversity of literature available to us in our mother tongues, uh, no other civilization in this world has. Hmm? And unfortunately, and I shouldn't be saying it on the English weekday, but we don't pay enough attention to other literature available. I speak 6 languages. And by the way, I started to learn Kannadiga last fortnight because I want to just add a seventh one and an eighth one and a ninth one. What this does is it introduces you to a very different way of looking at the world. We look at the world through our language. And when, in many ways, Kabir Incorporate was a synthesis of my love for Hindi and my love for English. They all came together for my first book. And Kabir's Dohas have hundreds and hundreds of insights about what do you do when you're upset, what do you do when you're angry, what do you do when you're happy, what do you do when deal with ups and downs, what do you do when you're very successful, what do you do when things don't go your way, what do you do when failure happens, how do you shake the failure up and move forward. So Kunal, I don't know, I can speak for an hour frankly to answer your question, but I would rate that as one of my top 5 influences, the Bhakti philosophy.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right, we will move on to the last and final question. That would be Adira Praveen Kumar. Adira, if you can unmute yourself.
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, Adira.
Firstly, I would really like to tell you that your whole speech definitely stimulated me into a very unique path. And my question is, so as an author, do you want to venture and write different genres, or do you want to stick to a particular one?
All my 3 books are different genres, Adira. The first, Kabir Incorporate, is about the corporate world. Echoes of Gasping Soul is a quasi-fiction. It's part fiction, part philosophy. And the third book, which is now coming out, is a murder mystery and a political thriller, completely masala, Amazon Prime types, only entertainment, no intelligence, pure fun. As a writer, it's a joy to deal with all genres and see how it goes. I had never imagined I'm going to write a political murder mystery ever. So I don't want to do the same thing. 3 books have been 3 genres. If you wish me luck, maybe a 4th one will be a different genre. And the 5th one will be yet another genre, and so on and so forth.
Thank you so much.
Sir, that was the last question. Thank you for answering very patiently. Thank you, sir. Rabia ma'am?
I would like to invite Moshri ma'am now to propose the vote of thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Mashmi.
Thank you is such a prayer that cannot be seen or touched. It must be felt from the heart. I feel privileged to get the opportunity to propose a vote of thanks on this special occasion. First of all, I would like to thank our Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Singh Gandhi, who took out time from his busy schedule to take us all on an interesting journey into the realm of creativity. Your thoughts have enlightened our minds and have shown us a new path. I am immensely thankful to our principal, Dr. Manila Carvalho, for giving us this opportunity and encouraging us in all our endeavors. I also thank our Vice Principal, Ms. Preeti Suta, who always inspires us to do our best and stands with us as a pillar of support. I would like to express my gratitude towards our senior mistresses, Ms. Vanaja Samrani and Ms. Rituparna Ghoshkar, and the coordinators for their presence and motivation. I must thank the head of the department, Ms. Shonali Roy, for her constant help and guidance that radiated a source of energy within us. I need to mention my deepest sense of appreciation to all the teachers of the English department for their dedication and team effort to make the English Week a success. A special mention to the technical team for the smooth conduct of this event. Last but not the least, I thank our young audience for being patient, interactive, and having a curious bent of mind. With this, we come to the end of today's session. Thank you all.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Guru, it was a wonderful session, and we are all inspired, enlightened, motivated, encouraged. As much as more we say, the less it is. And wish to have you on board in school in a physical atmosphere sometime in the very recent future. We'll plan something in school in an offline mode, so that we have a bigger audience and a larger crowd to grasp all that inspirational talk that you have delivered today at the session. Thank you so much. We wouldn't hold you back for long, because I know you are a very busy man, and you have a flight to catch immediately after the
Flight to
session.
catch. Yes. Take
Yes.
care.